Welcome to episode 54 of Finding Your Hidden Superpower, Autism, Asperger's, and those of us who are neurodiverse. Today I want to do another reaction video of a article in Psychology Today saying it's called 4 Signs You Have an Inner Gaslighter Mode. So what is gaslighting? Gaslighting is a psychological manipulation of a person, usually over an extended period of time, that causes the victim to question the validity of their own thoughts, perceptions of reality, or memories, and typically lead to confusion, loss of confidence, loss of self esteem, uncertainty of one's emotional or mental stability, and dependency on the perpetrator. So what happens is that the perpetrator makes you think you're crazy, makes you think that you're not in reality, when all the perpetrator is trying to do is manipulate you, and they're manipulating you so much that you think you're crazy. And you become dependent upon them because they're the ones that are trying to save you from your craziness, in which you're not crazy, you're just being manipulated by a person that's manipulating you pretty evilly. And so we can have our own inner gaslighter mode. So what does this have to do with autism? Well, we think differently. Us neurodiverse people think differently, and people penalize us for that because they can't understand us. Our triggers, our strengths are different than neurotypical people, and our challenges are different from neurotypical people. So all of a sudden, we get bullied. People think we're strange. People don't want to be around us, and all of a sudden we think we're crazy when we're actually not. Even the medical model is pretty much a gaslighter mode, in which medical model says that we have a disease. There's something wrong with us. We need to be fixed. We need to act like the rest of everybody else. Why can't we do that? Why aren't we doing that? We need to do that. We need to mask ourselves. And so a lot of society, whether consciously or unconsciously, they're pretty much gaslighting us, either accidentally or on purpose, because they don't like the way we think. They don't like the way we act because it's different. They don't understand it. And it's human nature, so don't take it personal. But when you're vulnerable to these people gaslighting you for you acting like you, all of a sudden you may feel pressured to act differently, to mask yourself, to be fake, basically. And so these it can get serious. I mean, because you may not feel good about yourself just because of who you are, how you think, how you act, how you respond. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm doing these videos, is because I've experienced that through society and through people that I trusted and loved. And, whether they were doing it on purpose or they were just doing it to manipulate me, I don't know. I can't take it personal. I got to move on. I got to keep out of those relationships. And so I want to help those who haven't understood what's going on and how society is treating them and how they can get out of that and empower themselves. So, common signs of gaslighting. It says victims of gaslighting often report feeling like the situation is surreal, like it's happening on a different plane from the rest of their life. The language describing you is crazy, irrational, over emotional, or with us neurodivergent people, we can be under emotional. We can shut down, and while we can get triggered when we're in overwhelm, and then people are thinking we're weird. So also we can be told that we're exaggerating, that it's not as bad as we think it is, and why are we acting this way? Um, when when we are looking at ourselves and trying to understand the interactions with others, we're feeling confused and powerless after leaving this interaction. And then we become isolated because we don't know who to trust. We don't know how to make sense of the world anymore. And so we isolate. And so also, people may act warm, cold, and people may have different reactions to us, and we're not able to figure out why they're having those reactions. Um, one of the techniques gaslighters use, if you're in a real gaslighting situation, is they'll withhold um, affection. They'll withhold information. They'll tell you, "Oh, you don't understand. Oh, forget it. You'll never understand that." Um, they'll they'll pretty much tell you that your version of reality and the way you remembered the interaction isn't the way it happened, and then they'll try and switch it. They'll try and um, spin it to make them look bad and make them look good, make you look bad. They will use what's called blocking. An abusive partner changes the subject and or questions the victim's thoughts. So if they're just trying to change the subject when you're trying to address a situation that you feel needs to be addressed, and if they're not giving you the time of day, well, you know what they really think about you. Um, they'll trivialize um, your your problems, uh, your problems in understanding, your emotional stability. They will trivialize it. They'll say, "Oh, you're just exaggerating. Oh, why do you're just too sensitive." Um, and then, of course, they'll forget that they did anything wrong, or they'll act as if, "What are you talking about? No, I didn't do that." Um, so they'll also deny that the interaction even happened. So a lot of this I've experienced throughout my life, and unfortunately, because I'm different, and it just is what it is. So if people aren't there to support you, yeah, you're going to have to pull back and you're going to have to reassess and figure out who you can trust and who you just can interact with, but you have to be cautious around. So we also, with this article, getting back to this article about the 4 signs that you have an inner gaslighter mode. The inner gaslighter makes you more vulnerable to people who gaslight. So you will either subconsciously or consciously uh, agree with them or be easily convinced by them that you are crazy, that there is a problem with you, that you are the problem, and you're the one that needs to be fixed. You're the one who has to act like everybody else because everybody else is doing it. That's the way everybody else acts. Why are you so different? Why do you think you're so special? So getting into the article, when you combine a strong inner critic, we all have inner critics. And one of the problems is that a lot of the times we can become our worst enemy. So, we can criticize ourselves. We can, push ourselves down. And when that inner critic is coming out, that inner critic can agree with the gaslighter, and that can make you vulnerable to these gaslighting situations and these gaslighting people. So you have to be very careful. So a strong inner critic is insecure, vulnerable, and leads to needing care and support. And unfortunately, they may ask for care and support to the wrong people that are just going to try and take advantage of them. The inner gaslighter may threaten you with worst case scenarios of being rejected or abandoned. So if you have abandonment issues, or if you're really, really triggered by being rejected, that was one of my things that I've had to work on for many, many years, is I hated being rejected. So sometimes I would reject people before they would reject me, because I was so fearful and so hurt by people rejecting me that I would just reject them. And so we have to notice when our inner critic starts talking to us. And there's a lot of what are called cognitive distortions, in which the inner critic will definitely look at worst case scenarios. They'll worry about being rejected and being abandoned. And a lot of the times it says the four signs you have an inner gaslighter. So everybody has an inner critic. So our inner critics can be more rational, to where we are actually criticizing us rationally and making us look at what the reality of the situation is. Or we could get out of control emotional, and we can have this inner critic just have major cognitive distortions. So you yourself could downplay your strengths and needs to keep others pleased. So, a lot of the problems with the neurodiversity community and the autism and Asperger's people is a lot of the times, even the most popular YouTube videos that are out there today, everybody's talking about themselves as being victims. Oh, I'm being triggered by this, and people don't understand. Well, one of the things is that, yes, you are being triggered, and yes, people don't understand, and they won't understand because they can't be you. Most of the people that don't understand are neurotypical people, so they think completely opposite the way we think. And so what we have to do, and the whole point of this video series, is we have to look at our strengths. We have to build on our strengths, and we have to figure out how we can use our strengths to add to society and enjoy life. Because if all we're doing is focusing on the negative, oh, I have X, and I'm limited because I can never change. We're always changing, but the question is, are you in control of your change? Or are you out of control? Are you being triggered and by other people? And are other people manipulating you through that use of purposeful triggering to get control over you, to get what they want from you by manipulating you? Do you really want to be manipulated? I don't think you do. So I'm sure that you really want to take control of your life and have a happy, enjoyable life and get everything that everybody else wants out of life. Deep down, you worry that you are flawed, and you feel shame about it. Yeah, I just recently, because of these videos, I just recently told some people I feel close to that what's going on with me, and it totally makes sense to them until I put out put it out there that I have autism and I'm neurodiverse, and explain the neurodiversity movement. And they're very understanding and very supportive. And so that's the whole thing. So a lot of us, I'm including myself, have felt shame about not being able to be like other people. It would be like I'm looking into. If you ever seen that movie, I'm old school, Trading Places with Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murray, and Eddie Murray gets all, they switch. Eddie Murray's a homeless person, and then he becomes they they do this bet these rich guys do this bet to manipulate people, and Eddie Murphy gets everything, and Dan Aykroyd gets everything taken away from him, and during Christmas, and Dan Aykroyd's looking through this window and watching Eddie Murphy enjoying himself and being, at this really nice Christmas party and being the toast of the town. And Dan Aykroyd has done everything he knows correctly, but then he's left out in the cold just because, just because. So definitely, I for a long time, I don't know about you, but I felt like I've been flawed, and I felt a lot of deep shame about that, and that drove my drug and alcohol addiction, and uh, and now that I understand myself better, now I have no reason to have to get wasted and waste my life away. So in relationships, you feel like beggars can't be choosers, and you should be happy with anything you got. So be careful of who you surround yourself. Friendships, uh, working environments, and definitely romantic relationships. You have to be picky because people are not going to understand you. You may be a good looking person and interesting, but then, when people start to really find out who you are, they might have difficulties understanding you. And if they are not going to put in the effort to understand you, you shouldn't have to put in all of the effort in the relationship, whatever that relationship may be, to make people understand you. Because if they're neurotypical people and they have low empathy and they're trying to manipulate you, there is going to be very, very difficult. You're going to be very, very frustrated, and you're going to be putting in a lot of energy into these relationships. So you need to be careful. So your inner dialogue includes two parts: the cruel inner critic and the scared, vulnerable part who is afraid of abandonment. So the cruel inner critic is the inner critic that's going to say you're stupid, you're ugly, you're not wanted, and the vulnerable, scared part is going to be the part that's going to be doing a lot of masking. And the masking, you're not going to feel good. Um, it's good to mask because you have to get along with people. So you may have to do things that you don't like, but then you don't have to go full bore into it. But you can associate with other people. And if you look at that you want to be around these people and you like helping them, but you have to be careful if they're trying to manipulate you. That's the wrong type of relationship to be in. And so you have to be very careful. So when you look at people that you're hanging out with, romantic, work, or friendships, look at these gaslighter traits and see if any of these people have them, and then you got to be very cautious around them. The inner gaslighter, and this is also your inner gaslighter as well. So your inner gaslighter demands that they are correct about everything, and they will attack you for disagreeing. So if that happens, especially if you're meeting people that you have, pretty hardcore debates with, and they don't appreciate your side of it, and you have to be careful about how you are talking to people, because also this goes, back and forth. You have to be careful about you demanding people to understand you. So you always have to have empathy and sympathy for others, and you always can have a debate. You can always have an argument. You can always have a friendly conversation, and you always can be have a different opinion. Everybody has a right to their opinion. You have a right to your opinion, and others do. So your opinion isn't the only opinion out there. So um, you have to be careful if you're hanging out with people that are questioning your sense of reality. So this is in part where you have to be careful about if you're still partying, drinking, and if you drink a little bit too much, you have to be careful about that because your own inner critic could take over and you could act like a totally different person because alcohol, drugs, they shut off the higher parts of our brain that keep us socially acceptable, and instead of turning into animals and just going after whatever we want. A lot of the times that's why people do drugs and alcohol, is because the only way they can get what they really want is when they're on drugs and alcohol, and a lot of the times it turns out worse for them because they're not doing it correctly, because the rest of the world doesn't like the way they're doing it. So um, you have to watch out for people that are using your insecurities to fortify more of your insecurities. So if they're attacking you, and then also with the inner gaslighter, are you attacking yourself? Are you always saying, oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'm so klutzy. I'm so uncoordinated. I'm this, I'm that. And all you're doing is looking at all the negative things that you claim that you are, in which you're not that. It's just that things are happening and you're not in control as much as you should be. And you're not being mindful of how you act and react and how you're trying to make things happen in your life for the positive. So the inner gaslighter will threaten you with the worst case scenario of being rejected and abandoned. You'll be alone forever. So if you're telling yourself that you'll be alone forever, that ain't true. You can always go out and find new people. There's 8 billion people on this planet, and there's plenty of people that you can get along with. It's just to find that special people, those special peoples out there. That's going to be the difficult thing to do. The inner gaslighter forces you to believe that you need to rely on them to understand what's really going on. So this mostly pertains on, well, the inner critic. So the inner critic is going to exaggerate all your negatives, and also it's going to reinforce all those negatives, and because those become your thought patterns, and then you'll react, and then those will lead to your behavioral patterns, that you'll be beating yourself up when other people want to like you. You'll reject them. You won't want to be around them because you'll be afraid to be hurt, and you might even hurt them in order for them to stay away from you, in order for you not to be hurt by them. And if that's happening, you need to really look at your inner gaslighter, and you got to get yourself under control and realize that you have a lot to add to this world, and there's a lot of things that you can help with. And so with that, um, 6 steps to recovering. Start to see yourself as a personality with parts. So there's many parts to us. We all have them, and it's healthy to appreciate your inner complexity. You may have an inner critic, you may have a vulnerable child, and then the real you part trying to manage and care for yourself. So you're going to have this, like executive CEO of your mind, and then who's trying to hold everything together. And that's located pretty much right up here. And so when you're on drugs or alcohol, this part ain't working all that well. For us autistic people and Asperger's people, a lot of times we have a lot of growth in this area. And what happens is that a lot of times those connections, there could be too many connections, and then we can confuse ourselves. We can outsmart ourselves. So we need to slow it down. We need to simplify and just think of three positive thoughts, your gratitude, um, and work on that and work on your gratitude list. So, assume authority. It's up to the real you to manage your inner critic and your vulnerable child to stop the inner gaslighting. So, it's up to this part. So, you have to get that inner CEO and get that CEO to focus in on what's important for you to become successful. Notice when your inner critic is talking. So be aware, be mindful. Meditation can help with mindfulness. Now, the problem with meditation is if you haven't done it, or if you try to do it and then there's all a million thoughts coming through, that's part of meditation. You just got to deal with that because a million thoughts will come in and then it'll chop down to 500,000 and then it'll chop down to 100,000. Then it'll chop down to 1,000 thoughts and then it'll chop down to 100 thoughts. So then it'll chop down to you get one thought every 10 or 20 seconds and then the rest of the time you're able to focus. And then it's an exercise just like going to the gym. You don't have to go to the gym for 23 hours a day. You can go to the gym for an hour a day, and then you get all of what you need for the other 23 hours. So you do a 20-minute meditation exercise, like going to the inner gym, and then you can focus on those thoughts that are negative and let them go. And you can focus on the positive thoughts and investigate them after you're done with your meditation. But you can just think of those thoughts as leaves falling from a tree into a little stream, a babbling brook. And those thoughts are just going down the stream. They're just thoughts. You don't have to attach any meaning to them. And you just let them go. And then you look at it later when you don't have any emotional uh, investment in it, and you can look at it cold and hard as just facts. So notice how the inner critic makes you feel. So obviously, if you're making yourself feel like crap, you know that that's the inner critic talking to you. If all you're doing is feeling awesome, that could be your inner narcissist talking to you. So you gotta look at it both ways. So what you want to do is find out what reality is. And reality sometimes may suck, but that's okay. If you understand how it sucks, then you can actually fix it. If you don't understand how it sucks and all you are is confused and all you do is feel like crap, your inner critic is making you do that. And so look at what the inner critic is telling you and figure out if that inner critic is crazy and just trying to screw you up, or if that inner critic is trying to tell you something that's important. So figure out how to use that inner critic to rationally look at what they're saying, and what they're saying, is it true? Figure out if it's true. The who, what, why, when, where, however, how much, how little. Ask those questions and write them down in your journal, and do some really thought processes and make it happen. So with that, this has hit a half an hour, and I could have gone longer than that, but I'll let you go. Have a great day.